The next call is a split call. I'm calling Gareth Hughes 5 minutes.
Koutou kia ora. I'd like to greet the 6 people watching the broadcast, because I suspect the rest of the country is watching the cricket at the moment. Mr. Speaker, it's an important topic we're discussing tonight, the harmful digital communications bill. The issue of bullying in general, no doubt all of us have experienced it to a greater or lesser extent over the years. Sadly, it's pervasive in our culture and our history, and there's a legitimate public debate around the nature of it, given our online environments that we live in and have for many years. Mr. Speaker, I want to raise a few questions for the Minister, because obviously the Green Party is supporting at this stage, but we've got to say there's some concerns when we're dealing with internationally unprecedented legislation. We saw a fast select committee process, additional evidence not considered by that select committee, and an intransigence by the government benches to not have a second look at a select committee. Now, we've heard of amendments being introduced in the committee stage. I think they should be referred back, as the member Tracy Martin attempted to do, to a select committee where they could have been considered, because there have been international developments which have been picked up by other members. We've seen Australia avoid the criminal offence approach at the heart of this legislation. Now, all members in this House agree with the intent. It's a different place. So Amy Adams wants to run out on her own, do something entirely experimental and unprecedented, and then she won't listen to the public, won't listen to the experts, won't put it through a select committee. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Minister, I think, should take her time, do it in a considered fashion, and look, let's look across the ditch. The fact is they've created an e-commissioner. The fact is they've avoided a criminal offence. Let's look at what's happening across there, and let's actually take our time. And if there's going to be a debate, I don't know why the Minister's afraid to have that conversation at a select committee. Now, Mr. Speaker, I want to address some of the points raised in this debate. Now, the fact is there are existing remedies. Now, NetSafe, the approved agency currently with no advertising, have informed me recently they've dealt with 800 cases in the last year alone. 800 cases. Now, what we're seeing is people say there's nothing can be done about this new scary threat. What are we going to do? You know, from The Simpsons, where people would say, won't someone think of the children? But the fact is, 800 cases have already been dealt with in the last year. Take the Roastbusters case. Here's an area where the police, in their wisdom, put a preservation order on the material, didn't request for it to be taken down. Take that sad case of the drunk 9-year-old on YouTube. Here again, the police blamed YouTube, but didn't get in touch with them. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the work done by our tech companies in New Zealand and their guidelines. This is where the education debate is so important. We should be educating our police. We should be educating our education officials. We should be educating the public the existing remedies. Now, as I reiterate, there is a legitimate public debate. Everyone in this House agrees with the intent. We want to reduce the impacts and the harm caused by cyberbullying, but there's legitimate public debates around making it a criminal offence, around the avoidance of decades of statute defences, for example, the Harassment Act or the Defamation Act, a legitimate debate around the education. Now, of course, the government didn't have to put the appropriation in this bill, but signalling how much money they're actually planning to spend on education, I think that would be useful and a valuable contribution to the House and the public. Looking across the ditch again, there's 7.5 million in extra funding there. And the last point I want to raise is the idea of something happening online should have a different offence to something happening offline. Now, we've heard discussions around telegrams. Now, Mr. Speaker, it would be ludicrous to think of a bullying on telegrams law. It would be ludicrous to think of a bullying on the telephone law. It would be ludicrous to think of a bullying on Morse code law. Now, Mr. Speaker, this is an important topic. The internet is incredibly valuable to our economy, to our society. We need to go into this field and with the power of legislation, forming an act, considered. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, it is disappointing we haven't sent this to a select committee, particularly on the latter point, when the UK House of Lords have rejected this entirely. The UK's House of Lords say what is not an offence offline should not be an offence online. In summary, I would like to acknowledge the government's intention all members in this House intention. No one in this House wants to see cyberbullying. The debate's around the solutions.